Tonight, family members are now identifying the victim killed in a crime that's tragically gone viral. That's when the accused killer live streamed from the crime scene. The suspect, 30-year-old Dominic Robinson, who identifies as a trans woman and just faced a judge for the very first time. She's accused of stabbing Mari Finley to death, believing he was responsible for the death of her boyfriend.
No, go ahead, keep singing. Go keep singing. Why you gonna stop? No, go ahead, hit them notes. Why you scared now?
No, I ain't scared.
You scared?
They ain't paying me.
29 years old, a chef, a son, swiped right on what he thought was a date. Instead, he walked into his own murder, and the killer made sure everyone watched. Dominic Robinson didn't just take Mucari Finley's life. She took his phone, hit Go Life, and turned his death into a broadcast. Oh, so now we doing public executions on social media? Because that's exactly what this was. But wait, there's a whole other story the internet didn't tell you. You're watching Shadowed Crimes TV. We tell the stories that need to be told. Domestic violence, toxic relationships, and the lives lost behind closed doors. No sugarcoating, no excuses, just the truth. If you're new here, subscribe and join us as we shed light on shadowed stories.
I'm coming to the door now. Yeah.
Okay. Just keep your hands up and you can go grab that ball and nothing's gonna happen, okay?
That dog getting ready. No.
Yep, just go grab the ball, okay? Nothing.
No, they need to move that f***ing dog.
Mucari Finley wasn't supposed to die at 29. He was a chef, and not just somebody flipping burgers at a chain restaurant. We're talking about a celebrated chef, the kind of person who understood that food was more than just eating. It was art. It was connection. It was love on a plate. His family owned a restaurant in Flint, Michigan, and when you walked through those doors, you weren't just getting a meal, you were getting a piece of their legacy. Let me tell you something. Mucari came from a family that believed in building, in creating, in leaving something behind that mattered. This wasn't some kid running the streets with no direction. This was a young man who showed up, put in the work, and made his people proud. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket situation. The man was clean. And despite what you might have heard floating around on the internet after his death, Mucari wasn't out here selling anything illegal. He wasn't using. His family made that crystal clear when they had to step forward and fight for his name. Because yeah, they had to do that. More on that in a minute. But for now, just know this. Mucari Finley was living his life, building his career, being a son, a nephew, a brother, a friend. He had people who loved him, people who needed him, and he had so much more life to live. So what happened? Like a lot of people these days, Mucari was on the dating apps, swiping, chatting, trying to meet somebody. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how folks connect now. That's the world we live in. He matched with someone, started talking. The conversations were flowing. Things seemed cool. They hadn't met in person yet, but they'd been messaging back and forth for a while. Building that rapport, you know? Getting comfortable. The person on the other side of those messages was Dominic Robinson, 30 years old. Went by the name Nikki Pop sometimes. She identified as a trans woman, and according to what came out later, she had her own situation going on. Her own pain, her own loss. See, Dominic's boyfriend had died earlier that year, and that grief, that anger, it was sitting inside her, waiting for somewhere to go. But here's where things get murky. Here's where the truth starts to split into two completely different stories. Mucari's family believes, and this is important, they believe that Mucari may have known Dominic's boyfriend, that maybe just maybe, there was something intimate there, some kind of connection between Mucari and the man who had passed away. But what they're absolutely sure about, Mucari had nothing to do with drugs, wasn't selling them, wasn't using them. That narrative that would later explode across the internet? Complete fiction. But Dominic had a picture in her head, a story she'd convinced herself was true. And whether Mucari knew it or not, when he agreed to finally meet up with her in person, he wasn't walking into a date. He was walking into a setup. Now let's talk about the Catfish situation, because this is crucial. The picture Dominic had been using in her profile, that wasn't what Mucari saw when he arrived. Girl, imagine that. You've been talking to someone online. You think you know what they look like. You show up, and it's a completely different person standing in front of you. That moment of confusion, that second of, wait, what's happening here, might have been the last clear thought Mari Finley ever had, because Dominic wasn't there to talk. She wasn't there to get to know him better. She wasn't there for a drink or a meal or a laugh. She was there for blood. The address was in Warren, Michigan, Dominic's home. And when Mucari walked through that door, he had no idea he'd just crossed the threshold into his own death. Dominic Robinson had been planning this, not just thinking about it, not just mad inventing, actually planning, plotting. The prosecutors would later say there was evidence of extensive planning, premeditation. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a fight that got out of hand. This was an execution disguised as a meetup, and once Mucari was inside, Dominic made her move. The attack was vicious. Mari Finley was stabbed multiple times. We're not talking about one wound in the heat of an argument. We're talking about a sustained, brutal assault, blade after blade, strike after strike. There was no chance for him to defend himself. No opportunity to talk his way out. No moment where he could run for the door and escape. Dominic Robinson wanted him dead, and she made sure of it. Mucari collapsed. The blood pooled around him. His breathing slowed, then stopped. And in those final moments, as his life drained out of him on that floor in Warren, he was utterly alone. But Dominic, she wasn't done. Because killing Mucari wasn't enough for her. The revenge she'd been stewing on, the rage she'd been holding on to since her boyfriend died, it needed an audience. So she grabbed her phone, opened up Facebook, and hit Go Life, period. She pointed that camera at Mucari's lifeless body and started talking. Started telling her side of the story to anyone who would watch, and people did watch. Hundreds, maybe thousands, scrolling through their feeds, stopping at the shock of it, unable to look away. This wasn't a news report. This wasn't a crime scene photo that leaked later. This was happening in real time. A man's body on the floor. A woman standing over him, speaking directly into the camera like she was hosting a show. Dominic told the viewers that Mucari had sold drugs to her boyfriend, that those drugs killed him, that Mucari was responsible for her loss, and this murder, this body, this blood, was justice. But here's the thing. The police never confirmed any of that, not one piece of it. The prosecutors never backed up her claims. Mucari's family, who knew him better than any stranger on the internet ever could, said it was all lies. But the damage was done. Because once something goes live on social media, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It spreads. It gets shared. It gets screenshot and reposted and talked about in comment sections everywhere. Mari Finley's death became content, entertainment, a spectacle. His family would later describe it as a triple murder. The first being his physical death, the stabbing, the bleeding out, the final breath. The second being what they called a public execution, like something out of medieval times, except instead of dragging his body through the streets, Dominic dragged it through the digital streets. The Facebook Live made sure the whole world could witness his humiliation. And the third, the character assassination. The lies Dominic told while his body was still warm. The narrative that painted Mucari as a drug dealer, as someone who deserved what happened to him, as the villain in a story where he was actually the victim. Moving on to what happened next, because this wasn't over yet. Dominic kept that live stream going. The police showed up, surrounded the house, and for 5 hours, 5 whole hours, there was a standoff. 5 hours of Dominic talking to the EE camera. 5 hours of negotiation. 5 hours of Mucari's family somewhere out there, watching their son's body on a screen, unable to do anything about it. Can you imagine? Can you even fathom what that must have felt like? When the police finally got inside that Warren home, they found exactly what thousands of people had already seen online. Mari Finley's body, the blood, the evidence of a violent, calculated murder. But here's what the viewers didn't see through that live stream: the forensic details, the evidence that would prove this wasn't just a crime of passion. This was something Dominic Robinson had thought about, prepared for, intended to do. The prosecution would later stand in court and lay it out plain. There was extensive planning involved, not just with Mucari either. Evidence pointed to Dominic having potentially planned to harm others too. This wasn't a one-time explosion of grief. This was methodical. Detectives started piecing together the timeline, the dating app messages, the setup, the Catfish profile, every digital breadcrumb that led Mucari to that house on that day. And while they were doing their job, trying to build a case, trying to make sense of what happened, the internet was doing something else entirely. It was running wild with Dominic's version of events. See, that's the problem with social media, isn't it? The truth doesn't matter if the lie gets out first. And Dominic's lie, that Mucari was a drug dealer who killed her boyfriend, it spread like wildfire. People who never knew Mucari, who never met him, who had no idea who he really was, they were commenting, sharing, picking sides. Some folks actually believed Dominic was justified, that Mucari got what he deserved. How did we get here? To a place where we watch someone die and then decide whether or not they earned it based on an accusation from their killer. Mucari's family had to sit with that, had to watch strangers debate their son's character, had to see his name dragged through the mud while his body wasn't even cold yet. And that's when they decided, enough. They weren't about to let the internet write the final chapter of Mucari's life. They weren't going to let Dominic's lies become the truth just because she said them loudest. So they called a press conference, packed their family restaurant in Flint, and they spoke up.
From animal control to say he needs to go and get his dog. We were under the impression that he was at work, and that's why he hadn't spoken to his mother. McCarty is his mother's best friend. They speak 5-6 times a day. So he immediately contacted his job. When they finally got back to us, a friend that he went to high school with that also works told my wife that McCarty didn't report to work today. We've been calling him all day. And she had his location. And we saw it on Westminster in Warren. I never connected the dots to the standoff because I wasn't interested in that negativity. And made phone calls to the Centerline police station to do a welfare check at his home. They referred us to Warren because I mentioned to them where his phone was pinging. We couldn't get the straight answer from Warren until we got there, and they took us in a room and told us plainly that McCarty was no longer alive. And then to realize, even in that moment, we didn't even connect the dots that it was that. It wasn't until later on, when a family member looked up who was lodged in the Macomb County Jail around that time in the morning. And then it all came together. If I had clicked on that live, I would have saw my son's body. You can't imagine the level of pain to find out in that manner that not only was he murdered, but that it was live streamed. And then to have to read all of the disgusting things that people have been saying about him who don't even know him, who only went off of what this person stated in that live video, which the police have already started rebutting through their investigation. McCarty died for nothing. For nothing. That young man touched so many people's lives. We as his family know it. Because every time we meet one of McCarty's co-workers, every single time, they tell my wife and I how much they love McCarty, how much they adore him. And now to go and read all of the tributes on his page, that it was so many other people that loved him, so many other people that feel he helped them, that looked up to him in his profession. So many people who said that he was one of the best chefs that they've ever worked with, who all thought he had such a bright future. You can't imagine the pain.
What did you say to make you pop right now?
I hope you rot in prison for the rest of your life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mucari has been murdered 3 times, one family member said, and you could hear the pain in every word. The first being his physical death, the second, a public execution like medieval times, except his body was dragged to the digital streets, the Facebook Live. But the third death was the character assassination that continues to haunt his memory. Let me tell you something. That right there, that's a family fighting for their son when he can't fight for himself anymore. They laid it all out. Mucari was not a drug dealer. He had no criminal history. He was not a drug user. He was a chef, a good person, someone who deserved to be remembered for who he actually was, not who a murderer claimed he was. But here's what really gets me. The family had to do this. They had to stand up in front of cameras and defend their son's name because a killer got to tell her story first. They had to fight through their grief to make sure the world knew the truth. Mucari's opportunity to speak was taken away, they said. Period.
30-year-old Dominic Robinson, who identifies as a trans woman and just faced a judge for the very first time. She's accused of stabbing Mari Finley to death, believing he was responsible for the death of her boyfriend. Today, in court, Finley's family wiping away tears from their eyes as they grapple with his loss.
There was also a Facebook Live confession that identified and showed the deceased lying on the floor. There was a 5-hour standoff with police while they continued to live stream.
Prosecution laying out the stunning details in court of a gruesome murder from last Friday when beloved local chef, 29-year-old Mari Finley, was killed in Warren. Prosecutors say the suspect behind the horrific act, 30-year-old Dominic Robinson, then live streamed the aftermath. Police say during that live stream, Robinson claimed the victim had sold her boyfriend drugs that led to his death earlier this year. However, police have not confirmed these allegations.
Your Honor, involved in this case was extensive planning at least to one additional person, what the intention was to kill the now deceased.
Inside the Warren courtroom Monday, Robinson appearing over Zoom, the judge setting a $2 million cash bond and ordering a mental health evaluation. Devastated family members there at the arraignment declining a request for interview, but releasing the following statement, which reads in part, "The tragic murder of our son Mari Finley for all to watch and share as entertainment is something that none of us would have ever thought we would have to deal with." It went on to say, "He was a friend, a brother, an uncle, a nephew, a grandson, and our son. He is loved and his life mattered. He didn't deserve what happened to him." And Robinson is pleading not guilty. She's due back in court next week, where we are sure to learn more details about this disturbing case.
Such a sad state of affairs. Thank you so much, Ruda.
Dominic Robinson was arrested after that 5-hour standoff. Once the live stream ended, once the negotiations were done, once she finally came out of that house, the police took her into custody. And on Tuesday, she faced a judge for the first time. The arraignment happened over Zoom. Dominic appeared on screen while Mucari's family sat in the Warren courtroom, wiping tears from their eyes, trying to hold it together as they watched the person who killed their loved one. The charges were read out: first-degree premeditated murder, not manslaughter, not second-degree, first-degree premeditated. That means the prosecution had evidence that this was planned, that Dominic thought about it, prepared for it, and executed it with intention. The judge set bond at $2 million, cash, not 10%. Not a bond you can walk out on if you got a cousin with good credit. $2 million cash, which meant Dominic wasn't going anywhere. The judge also ordered a mental health evaluation. And look, that makes sense. You'd have to question the mental state of someone who commits murder and then broadcasts it to the world like it's a reality show. Dominic pleaded not guilty. Not guilty, despite the live stream, despite the body, despite the confession she basically gave to thousands of viewers while standing over Mucari's corpse. Not guilty. Is that what we're doing now? But here's the thing about the legal system. It doesn't move fast. It doesn't care about our need for immediate justice or closure. It grinds along at its own pace, and all the family could do was wait, for all to watch and share as entertainment. That's what Mucari's death became. Content. A viral moment. Something people watched while eating dinner or lying in bed scrolling through their phones. His family had to see their son's final moments turned into a spectacle. They had to watch strangers consume his death like it was a Netflix series. And then they had to get up, go to court, and face his killer. The prosecutors said they had more evidence coming, that when Dominic returned to court the following week, there would be additional details revealed, more pieces of the puzzle that would show just how deep this went. But for Mucari's family, no amount of evidence was going to bring him back. No guilty verdict was going to undo what they'd seen. No sentence was going to erase the fact that their son's death played out on social media for the world to see. They wanted justice, yeah. But more than that, they wanted people to know the truth. They wanted Mucari to be remembered as he was, a 29-year-old chef with his whole life ahead of him, a son, a nephew, a friend, someone who mattered, not the person Dominic Robinson claimed he was during that live stream, not the villain in someone else's revenge fantasy, just Mucari. Anyways, as the case moved forward, as the evidence piled up, as the legal machine did its thing, the family tried to hold on to that, tried to focus on who Mucari really was instead of how he died, because at the end of the day, that's all they had left, his memory, and they'd be damned if they were going to let anyone take that away too. Girl, the strength it took to do that, to stand up while you're drowning in grief and fight for your child's name, to correct the record when all you want to do is fall apart. That's love. That's family. That's what it means to refuse to let someone be erased. And Mari Finley? He deserved that fight. He deserved people who wouldn't let the lies win. Because his life mattered, his story mattered, and the truth, the real truth, not the one Dominic told, that mattered most of all. So where does that leave us? Mari Finley is gone. 29 years old, a chef who never got to cook another meal, a son who never got to hug his mother again, a nephew, a brother, a friend, all of that, just gone. And for what? Dominic Robinson sits in jail waiting for her day in court, maintaining her innocence despite the fact that she literally showed the world what she did. The evidence is there. The live stream is there. The body was there. But Mucari's family? They're still fighting, still trying to reclaim their son's name from the internet's grip, still trying to make sure that when people hear Mari Finley, they don't think of that Facebook Live. They don't think of the accusations. They think of the person he actually was. That's the battle they're left with. And honestly, it's a battle they shouldn't have to fight. See, this case isn't just about one murder. It's about what happens when we turn tragedy into entertainment, when we scroll past someone's death like it's just another post in the feed, when we share it, comment on it, form opinions about it without knowing a single real thing about the person who died. Mucari became a hashtag, a trend, a story people told at work the next day. Did you see that video? Did you hear what happened? But he was a person, a whole entire person with dreams and plans and people who loved him. And his family had to watch him become a meme. Make it make sense. Because it doesn't. None of it does. The fact that someone can commit murder and broadcast it live, and we all just watch. The fact that a killer gets to tell their version of events to thousands of people before the victim's family even knows their loved one is dead. The fact that lies spread faster than truth, and by the time the real story comes out, half the world has already made up their mind. That's the world we're living in now. That's what social media has done to us. It's turned us into spectators of each other's pain, consumers of tragedy, judges and juries before all the facts are even in. And look, I'm not saying Dominic Robinson's pain wasn't real. Losing someone you love? That grief is heavy. It changes you. It makes you want to blame someone, anyone, for the hole that's been ripped in your life. But this wasn't justice. This wasn't healing. This was revenge against the wrong person, broadcasted to the world like it was supposed to mean something. Mucari didn't deserve what happened to him. Period. He didn't deserve to be catfished, didn't deserve to be lured into a trap, didn't deserve to be stabbed multiple times and left to die on a stranger's floor. And he damn sure didn't deserve to have his body displayed on social media while his killer told lies about who he was. But here's what I need you to understand. This could happen to anyone. Your son, your brother, your friend. One swipe on a dating app. One conversation with the wrong person. One decision to meet up, thinking everything's fine, thinking you're safe, and then you're not. Mucari trusted what he saw on that profile. He believed the person he'd been talking to was real. He showed up expecting one thing and got something completely different. That's the danger we're living with now. You really don't know who's on the other side of that screen. You don't know what they're planning, what they're hiding, what they're capable of. And even if you do everything right, even if you're careful, even if you're a good person living a clean life, someone else's pain can still find you. Someone else's rage can still reach out and destroy you. We should remember Mucari, the person, the son, the chef. We should remember that behind every viral tragedy is a family that's been shattered, a life that mattered, a truth that deserves to be told, because at the end of the day, that's all we have, the truth. And for Mucari Finley's family, making sure that truth was heard, that was the last thing they could do for him. So they did it. And we, everyone who watched, everyone who shared, everyone who formed an opinion, we owe it to him to listen, to hear the real story, to see him as he was, not as his killer tried to paint him. Because Mucari Finley deserved better than what he got. He deserved to live. He deserved to be safe. And he deserved to be remembered for who he really was, not for how he died. Let me tell you something. That's the least we can do. Remember the person, honor the truth, and think twice before we turn someone's tragedy into our entertainment. Because it could be any of us next. Any of us. If this story moved you, if it made you think twice about the things we share and consume online, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for Shadowed Crimes TV. We tell the stories that need to be told, the ones about real people, real families, and real consequences. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and if you know someone who needs to hear Mucari's story, share this video. Until next time, stay safe out there.